Okay, so today's Daf Yomi is Yevamos Kuf Your Test 119. Aisha Shahalach Bala. We start the new parak. The new parak is called Aisha Basra. We've had Aisha Shalom, the woman of peace, Aisha Rabbah, the great woman, and now is Aisha Basra. This is the last woman because we come with this to the final chapter of this beautiful Masechta known as Yevamos. What a beautiful parak and what a source it was to study with everybody. Aisha Shalach Balav Tzarasa Medina Sayam. So a woman, what happened was the woman and her husband went overseas. They went to her woman and her co-wife, woman's husband and her co-wife went overseas. Ubal va'amrula, and who came? They came back, most likely witnesses came. Two witnesses came and they said, Meis ba'alech. They said, two witnesses come and they say, your husband has died. Lo tinase v'lo tisyabim. Ad sheteda, shema muberes hitzarasa. So even though the witnesses come and they say, your husband has died, she still can't get married. Why? The reason why she still can't get married is because her husband went out without children. And so therefore, we don't know whether or not her husband has a child. And so therefore, she might have fallen to Yibam. But she also can't do Yibam right away with her husband's brother because maybe her co-wife had a child. And so therefore, so she can't do anything until she knows that the co-wife didn't have a child. Because maybe the co-wife is pregnant. That's the case of the Mishnah. So this woman, even though their witnesses say her husband's dead, she can't remarry yet. Hi, so and by the way, this was actually very realistic in a common scenario that the woman would hear that her husband has died, but she wouldn't know if he got married overseas and for a lot of time. So under these circumstances, she can't get married and she can't do Yibam. And the Gemara is going to ask, well, why can't she just do Chalitza? And then for sure, either one way or the other, she'll be okay. The Gemara is going to ask that case. Hi, Salah, Chamos. Let's say she had a mother-in-law. Eino chosheshes. You don't have to be concerned that the mother-in-law had another son, which is a brother for her husband. Because her husband, when he died, he had no brother. So she said, I don't have to go to Yibam. But you don't have to be concerned that maybe her mother-in-law had another boy, which we didn't know about. By the way, I was thinking yesterday, why don't you have to be concerned that the husband had another child and just he didn't tell anybody? Why don't maybe he's a Russian, he goes around having children. So the Gemara says earlier, Ayenolav, that you have to really look into the matter and make sure. But my son Roey told me that he was going to a shir, and he heard from the shir that the rabbi who gave the shir said that's one of the reasons we don't do Yibam today anymore, because we say that people today, nobody's believed anymore to say they don't have another child. That may be like we're not dealing with, the world today is not filled with tzaddikim. It's possible that there's another child, and therefore, if you would do Yibam in a situation where the husband had a surviving son, then it's Pogea Be'erva, so that's a big problem. But let's say the mother-in-law went out pregnant, then you have to be concerned that she actually had a child, whereas Rabbi Shua says, Rabbi Shua says you don't have to be concerned. So what's the reason? Rashi explains, what's the reason why you don't have to be concerned that the mother-in-law has a child? Because, first of all, Rashi says, because first of all, you're not sure whether or not by the mother-in-law, you say maybe she had a child, and if it's a child, it might have been a girl. So therefore, there's a less of a likelihood. Whereas the woman, the co-wife, if she has a child, there's a question whether or not she's going to have one child or not. And so fine, that's just one doubt. But here in the case of the mother-in-law, even if she has a child, it's not enough to make her have to do Yibam, because then the child could have been a girl and then she doesn't have to do it. Okay, so now the Gemara says, whereas Rabbi Yeshua says we don't have to be concerned if she's pregnant, even if she's pregnant, because maybe she miscarried. And even if she didn't miscarry, maybe it was a girl. So how's the coffee today? So the Gemara says, "Ma'it sarasa." What does it mean? The Gemara's first question is about the lashon of the Mishnah, the language of the Mishnah. It says, "Ad sheteda shema muberes hit sarasa." She or co-wife. So what does that mean, she or co-wife? So the Gemara says, "Hakamashmalan lahad tzara hu dechashinan avol tzara achrisa lo chashinan." Yeah, we're only worried about the co-wives we know about. You don't have to be concerned that he took another wife and didn't tell us. That was the question I kind of had. You don't have to worry about this co-wife. You don't have to assume, well, how do we know he didn't have another co-wife? Fine. So if a witness has come back and say her husband is dead, you can't get married and you can't do even. So under those circumstances, she can't get married, she can't do yibum. The Gemara says, I understand why she doesn't do yibum, the dilma mi abra, because maybe the co-wife is pregnant, the kabaga be'ishes ach yiraisa. And so then if the co-wife is actually having a child, she's going to be pogeya. She's not allowed to be with this person. She's being pogeya with the eishes ach, with her husband's brother, when she's not allowed to because her husband had a child. So I understand why we don't allow her to do nibum. Why don't we allow her to get Ella?
It's not just that she's pregnant; she has to have a child, right?
Right. So the point is, but if she's pregnant, she might have a child, and then
have to wait to see if the child is born.
We'll see what's going to happen. The Gemara is going to raise that question. That's going to be a dispute amongst the Amorai and what Jeff is asking. Can you just wait? Jeff is asking, why don't you just wait the amount of time until a child's born? And that's exactly going to be a dispute amongst in the Gemara. Gemara says, El Lotina say, Amai, why don't we allow her to get married? So why don't we allow her to get married? So I understand why she can't do Yibam because maybe she has a child, but allow her to get married. And so the Gemara explains, no, that's not okay. Because we follow the majority. The Rov Nashim is Abro, it's because majority of women get pregnant and have a baby. And in this case, the co-wife most likely had a baby. And so therefore, so why don't we say under those circumstances she should be allowed to get married? I understand why we're not going to allow her to do Yibam, but most likely she had a child, the co-wife, and therefore allow her to get married. So why don't we allow her to get married on the basis that the co-wife most likely had a child? Gemara says, Lema Rabbi Meir. No, because we're going to say that our Mishnah must be like Rabbi Meir, the Chayash Muta. Rabbi Meir is always concerned about the less likely possibility. And in this case, the less likely possibility is that she didn't have a child. So Rabbi Meir is always concerned for that danger. And so therefore, we're not going to allow her to get married. So you want to say that our Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir, who's always Chayash Muta. So the Gemara says, no, even I feel Timur Rabbanan. We could even say that our Mishnah is not a minority opinion of Rabbi Meir. Our Mishnah could even be like the majority opinion of the rabbis, who typically say throughout the Talmud, we follow the majority principle. But we say, Ki Azli Rabbanan Basaruba, when did the rabbis follow the majority principle? There's different types of majorities. There's what's called a Ruba de Isa Kaman and a Ruba de Lesa Kaman. Ruba de Isa Kaman is a majority that's in front of us. And a Ruba de Lesa Kaman is the majority that's not in front of us. It's just the statistical likelihood. So the Gemara says, first gives an example of what's called the Ruba de Isa de Kaman. When do the rabbis follow the majority? By a Ruba de Isa Kaman, the majority that's in front of us. Like what? You have 9 stores. This Sanhedrin. So what are the 9 stores in the Sanhedrin? First, let's say the case of the Sanhedrin. That's if you have a court. 12 say he's innocent, 11 say he's guilty. You follow the majority, he's innocent. You count up. What are the 9 stores? If you have 10 shops in a city, 9 sell kosher food, and one sells non-kosher food, and you go into the shop, a shop, and you buy. That's then we're going to say that you follow the 9 stores, and most likely the meat in that store is kosher. But by the way, there's another principle called the Parsha Meruba Parsha, and if you find it, then it's not enough. But if you go into the stores, it's okay. That's going to be, we follow the majority. So why don't we say it's like this shop, the 9 stores? That's when the rabbis say it's the position of the majority. Of a Ruba de Lesa to come on, but if it's a majority that's not in front of us, like, the majority of women give birth and have a baby. Well, that's not in front of us. That's just the statistical likelihood that the rabbis don't say majority. Ruba de Lesa come on, lo azli rabbanan basa ruba. So there, the rabbis don't follow the majority, and therefore this Mishnah could even be like the rabbis. And they say, therefore, she can't remarry because it's possible we don't follow the majority in this circumstances. Or it says, is that really the case? If a ruba delays to come on, ruba by a ruba that's not in front of us, the rabbis don't follow a majority. What about a minor, a katan and katana? The ruba delays to come on. What is this referring to? We had this already in our tractate a few times that we don't that a minor boy and a minor girl don't do yibum or chalitza, and one of the reasons is because it's possible that they're not going to fall to the category of yibum or chalitza because some children are not capable of having children, and so are not capable of reproducing when they grow older, and so therefore they're not able to do yibum. And if they're not able to do yibum, you're prohibited to do yibum because it's pogea be'erva. So if that's the case, what about a minor boy, minor girl, deruba delesa to come on, vazli rabbanan basaruba, and there the rabbis say that they are able, that the Tanya, there the rabbis do follow the majority. The Tanya katan v'katana lo cholton lo miyamin divrei Meir. Meir's chayshel miyutai says they can't do chalitza and they can't do yibum. And Amrlo Rabbi Meir, and the rabbis argued, and the rabbis said, Yafa Marta Shein on cholton. We agree with you that they don't do chalitza. Ish ksiv b'parsha. It says a man does chalitza. And we compare a woman to a man. What's the reason why a child, a little boy can't do yibum? Rameir says katan shema yimtza sris. A minor maybe will be a sris. And katana shema timatzi ionis. Maybe the katana will be an ionis. These are people who can't reproduce. V'nimtzu pogim be'erva. And then as a result of that, they're being pogea on the erva. And so therefore, Rabbi Meir says we're chayish l'muta there. And the Rabbanon say we follow the majority. Rabbanon sabri zil basa ruba de katana beruba berov katana b'lav srisininu. Zil basa rov katanos lav ilonis ninu. The rabbis say under these circumstances, even though it's a ruba delesa delakaman, it's like the case of most women give birth, and still the rabbis say you follow the majority there, and the majority there is that most kids grow up to be able to reproduce, and so therefore they don't agree with Rabbi Meir because they say we still follow the majority. So we see, even though it's a case of ruba delesa delakaman, the rabbis don't follow the majority. Yeah, Jeffrey has a question.
Isn't it your paternal brother?
Only with your paternal brother, yeah.
It's the mother-in-law.
No, yeah.
Different father. Assuming it's the same father.
Yeah. That's so the Gemara says, Ella mechavarta. So therefore, it must be that our Mishnah is not the Rabbanan. Ella mechavarta must be Rabbi Meir. Our Mishnah must follow the position of Rabbi Meir, who's chayish l'muta, who's always concerned with the small possibility that the co-wife did not have a child. I mean, you could have said, the Gemara doesn't give this answer, but you could have said, the Gemara basically is going to give this answer, but you could have said, there's much greater number of people who don't have children than who grow up to be like a sris. Not everyone who has a child is a sris, but every sris doesn't have a child. So by definition, there must be more people who are, so therefore it's a greater likelihood they won't have a child than a sris. But the Gemara gives an answer at the end similar to it. But the Gemara doesn't give that answer. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, if that's the case, you've established that our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, Ema Seifa. But what about the next clause in the Mishnah? What does the next clause say? That if he has a mother-in-law, you don't have to be concerned she had another son and she has to yibum with him. Why not? Why would a Rabbi Meir be concerned here? Majority of women are pregnant. The oldos, miut papilos, but majority of the women are pregnant and they have a child. And miut, and a small minority of them are mapilos. And of all the ones who give birth, some give to boys, some give to females. You combine the minority of the ones who have miscarriages to the 50% that are female. And so there's still going to be a small minority that are going to give birth to boys, and you should be concerned about it. She should be concerned to do yibum. The Gemara says, no. So the Gemara says, no, maybe the reason why our mayor is not going to be concerned in that case is there's already presumptive status of her being able to marry, and so therefore he is not going to take this minority status and impose it on her presumptive status. Gemara says, but what are you talking about? Reisha, Yavim. Well, then if that's the case, in the first clause where there's a presumptive status that she could do Yibum, let her do Yibum. So the Gemara says, so Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Hua. So first attempt, Rav Nachman says in the Reisha, the Easter Kares Chashishu. In the Reisha, if she does Yibum when she's not allowed to, that's a prohibition of Kares. And so therefore, Chashishu. And so therefore, for that reason, because it was an Easter Kares, there was the concern. But Seifa, but in the concluding clause, the Easter Lav, where it was just, if she gets married to the brother-in-law, if she does Yibum when she's not supposed to, that's a prohibition of Kares. But if she just goes ahead and gets married to somebody else when she's supposed to do Yibum, that's a lesser prohibition called a Lav, just a regular prohibition. So Sefer D'Isa Lav will Chashishu. So therefore a mayor allows it because it's just a regular prohibition. So Rava responds to Rav Nachman, Amar Rava, Michti Hadia Raisa. No, the whole idea is of Suffolk D'Oraisa L'Kula that we're going to be lenient by a biblical matter. That you don't distinguish between a kares penalty and a lav. Both are biblical. Malisa kares, malisa lav. They're both biblical prohibitions. Rava says, I don't agree with that. So therefore, Rava says, Rava, on top of Kuf Yud Tes Amabeis, Rava says, Reisha chazaka liyibum v'ruba l'shuk. Reisha, there's a presumptive status that she's going to do yibum, meaning to say that the co-wife does not have a child, and the ruba l'shuk. But the majority of cases there is that they do have a child, and therefore she doesn't do yibum. The chazaka lo adif kiruba, and the presumptive status is not going to be stronger than the majority. The Isa de miuta de mapilos, and then we bring along a minority of them that have miscarriages, and smoke the chazaka, and so therefore we take the chazaka that we put the chazaka of the presumptive status, which is that they're going to have a child, and we combine that with the minority, palga b'palga, and so therefore they all cancel each other out, and lo tinasei v'lo tiyadim, and so therefore she can't get married. She can't get married because it's possible that she didn't have a child, and v'lo tisyabim because she possibly she did have a child. And so therefore they cancel each other out. That's what Rabbi Meir would say. But Seifa, but in the concluding clause, Chazaka l'shuk, in the concluding clause, the presumptive status is that she could get married because her mother-in-law didn't have a son. The Ruba l'shuk, and the majority of cases are that the mother-in-law does not have a child. Baboy is a char miuta, and it's a minority that the mother-in-law would have a son, and miuta de miuta, it's a miuta de miuta lo chayshi al meir. So a mayor is concerned about a small possibility, but he's not concerned about a small possibility of a small possibility. So that's why Rabbi Meir is drawing this distinction. And to me, it's a little bit of a forced distinction because I guess you're saying it's even less likely. But the way we do statistics today is, I guess, somebody should correct me, but I'm guessing it's like the percentage-wise. Is it 40%, 30%, 20%? That would be more likely. But here we're just saying miuta de miuta, but that's basically what we're saying. That's her marriage position. So we said in our first case that where she has a co-wife that goes out, her husband comes back, the witnesses say her husband's dead, and the co-wife is in existence. She can't get married and she can't do either. She can't get married because maybe her husband had no children and therefore she has to yibum. She can't do yibum. Maybe the co-wife has a child and so then she can't do yibum either. So the Gemara says, olam, she can never do it. Amar Ziri, no, it doesn't mean she can never get married or never do yibum. She has to wait 3 months to see if she's pregnant. If she's not pregnant, then she knows that she doesn't do yibum, that she goes to yibum. But for her co-wife, she has to wait tisha. She has to wait 9 months to make sure her co-wife did not have a child. And then, if the co-wife didn't have a child, she could do yibum. So the Gemara says, "V'cholad says, let her do chalitza. What's the problem? If she does chalitza, then if the chalitza, and then what could she do? If her husband had no children, well, now she did chalitza, and so then she can marry somebody. If her husband had children, then chalitza is useless. Who cares? Gemara says Rabbi Chanina Amar. So therefore, Rabbi Chanina says for this reason. So I skipped on. So because it's min manav shach. So therefore, Rabbi Chanina says La'atzma shlosha chaver to olam v'tichot min manav shach. Rabbi Chanina says exactly that's what she's supposed to do. She waits 3 months for herself, 9 months for her co-wife, and then after that, okay, let me just get this right from the beginning. So Zeiri says she does 3 months for her friend, so 9 months, and then she does chalitza miman of shach. Whereas Chanina says la'atzma shlosha v'chaver to la'olam, and that's it. Rav Chanina argues with Zeiri, and she says she can never do the chalitza. So Zeiri says yes, she does the chalitza miman of shach, and Rav Chanina says no, that she can never do the chalitza. So the Gemara says, why not? The tichos miman of shach. So why can't, according to Rav Chanina, why can't she at least do the chalitza? Why are you going to say that she can't do it at all until she knows for sure that her co-wife had a child? Why can't she at least do the chalitza at some point? Gemara explains, Abaye bar Avin, Rav Chanina bar Avin, Amri Trabayo. No, it's a gezerah. We're not going to let her get married in this circumstance unless the co-wife has a child, because it's a decree. Shema yev vlad ben kayama. Maybe the co-wife would have had a child. And now she does the chalitza, and we're saying the chalitza was useless. We have to make a proclamation that she can marry a kohen, that she wasn't divorced. Chalitza, by the way, that if a woman who was just had chalitza, it's not biblically that she's not allowed to marry. It itself is rabbinic. But still, we don't want to have to make such a proclamation. So, okay, so make the proclamation. Who cares? Let her get married. Gemara says, no, we're not going to allow her. It's possible that there were some people who will be there when she did the chalitza, and they saw her do the chalitza, and they will not be there when she does the proclamation. They'll say, oh, you're allowing a woman who had chalitza to marry a kohen. They'll become a tumult. People will misunderstand the halacha that the rabbis made that a chalitza cannot marry a kohen. So the Gemara says, Tanan. So the Gemara says, well, in this context, we know that we're not worried about this case of this hachraza. Tanan, mitali ben bedina sayam. We learned in the Mishnah in yesterday's daf. If a woman says, I had a son overseas, va'amra, and then she said, meis b'ni va'akach bali, and she said, my son died and then my husband died. Now, menace, we believe her when she says, my son died and then my husband died. We believe her and she could remarry. And we don't worry about her having her son alive. She could do yibum. But if she says, my husband died and then my son died, so she says, my husband died and then my son died, so therefore I'm free, I don't need yibum, ain't an menace. We don't believe her. We're concerned about what she said. And so, since we have a concern about what she says, but we do require her to do chalitza, not yibam. But why? Leichush. Why do we allow her to do? Why do we say do chalitza in that case? Why do we have to be concerned? That maybe witnesses will come, and they'll say just like she said. And then she would not have needed a chalitza. You have to make this proclamation. And there we don't say that. There we say it in the Mishnah yesterday that we require chalitza and not yibum. We require chalitza. So Amar Papa Begrusha. No, in that case the woman was already divorced, so we wouldn't have to make a proclamation. So Rav Kiya Bereder Rav Huna Amar Ba'amra Anivahu Nachbu B'Ma'ara. They said no. The circumstances where she claims that case at a specific circumstance, she says we were hiding in a cave and there was nobody with us to know and come and testify. So therefore, we don't have to be concerned that witnesses are going to come. You got a question, Reb David?
Yeah. So I have a question. So I thought I didn't know if that stuck with the wife. Like if she got married again and then became a widow.
Yeah, it sticks with her. Yeah.
It was a previous.
Yeah. Sorry. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's it. We had that Gemara about a minor That when you're referring to minor, there the Gemara discusses whether it stays with her if she does miyun, if she's a minor, and then under those circumstances. But if an adult, then she would have that category.
And also, so they're saying instead of just saying, well, she can't marry a Kohen, she can't marry anyone.
Right. So that's a very good point. We're saying that because of the idea that we're concerned, it's just a rabbinic prohibition upon a rabbinic prohibition. The rabbinic prohibition that a chalutza can't marry a Kohen, and therefore there's another rabbinic concern that people are going to misunderstand the law that a chalutza is prohibited to marry a Kohen, and because we would have to make a proclamation that actually she could marry a Kohen, and people would misread it. Because of that, she can never get married. So this shows like it's very harsh, but the whole concept here is ziyufat Torah, that we can't allow the Torah to be misunderstood. So that's the whole idea. Like you can be lenient, but you can't say the Torah says what it doesn't say. You can't say the Torah says that's the explanation of Reb Chaim. You can never say that the Torah says what it doesn't say. All right, let's just do this last Mishnah. Then the Mishnah says, Shtei Yevamos, so let's say you have two Yevamos, two women basically who are co-wives, and their husbands, they both have no children. They're not co-wives. They're married to two brothers, and the brothers could die. So now they're co-wives. They're not co-wives. They're both married to two men who died, who were brothers. And Zuo Maris Mace Bali. One comes back and says, "My husband died." Zuo Maris Mace Bali, and one says, "My husband died." Zua Surim Bala Shalzeh. So we believe them that when they say their husband died, but the other woman can't believe them. They're not believed to tell the other woman that your Yavam has died, that my husband's brother has died, and therefore you can remarry. Excuse me. So we believe them about themselves, but we don't believe them for the other woman. And so therefore, for this case, Zua Surim Bala Shalzeh. Woman A can't remarry because maybe her husband's brother is still alive. And the other woman can't remarry because maybe her husband is still alive. Well, let's say one woman had witnesses that her husband died. Well, then ironically, the other woman can now remarry because she's not relying upon her test. She can believe herself that her own husband died, and she has witnesses that her husband's brother died. So the one who has the witnesses can't remarry yet, but the one who didn't have the witnesses can remarry. Okay, next case. That's the same thing. The one who has children, then the other woman can remarry. The one who has children, she can remarry because she doesn't have to do yibum. And the one who doesn't have children, she can't remarry because she might fall to yibum. Asura. Yisyamra umesu. Let's say they did yibum and mesu ayavamin, and so let's say there were two other brothers there, and each married another man, another one of the brothers, and then the yavamin died. So now they go back to their initial brothers. So now we say asurasli nase. So let's say. So look at Rashi. So if the yavamin died, they're now prohibited to get married to the marketplace. Because we're worried that maybe each of the other husbands are still alive. And even though they married these other brothers under the presumptive status that their own husbands had died, which they believe, but now they're believing for themselves. But now if they want to get married, now they're relying back on the first person's testimony. And Yevamos cannot testify for their Yevama. And so therefore, under these circumstances, they're going to be prohibited to remarry because they still need to do the Yibum with their husband's brother. So hold on one second. So we say, but Rebbe Lazar says, he says, no, once they became permitted to the Yevamim, they became permitted to everybody, and therefore Rebbe Lazar says they can now go into the marketplace and marry. Okay, I'll take any questions if anybody has any questions.